Hi guys, welcome back. This is our last lesson for Unit 5. Now we're going to rename customary units. If you'll recall, at the end of, I believe it was Unit 4, we renamed metric units, which I told you was nice and easy because all we had to do was move a decimal. Well, now you're dealing with our system, the good old American units, which are not nice and easy, not multiples of 10. So you have to remember your conversion factors, and that's what I have listed here on your chart, okay? The conversion factors. Most of you are probably pretty familiar with the measures, at least the first two. 1 foot is 12 inches, 1 yard is 3 feet. Those ones you probably know. You may or may not know the conversion for a mile. A mile is 5,280 feet. Okay? Those ones we're pretty familiar with. The capacity ones, not always are we real familiar with this. So we're going to go over those ones. So 1 cup is equal to 8 fluid ounces, meaning if I have 8 fluid ounces of something, I can say I have 1 cup. 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. 1 quart is equal to 2 pints. And 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. These are things that you should know, and we did talk about them last year in 6th grade. So remember, those you should be learning. You should know these conversions here. And our last unit is weight. And don't get confused here because weight is in ounces. If we're talking about capacity, it's fluid ounces. So make sure you're paying attention to those two and don't get fluid ounces and ounces confused. So 1 pound is 16 ounces. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. Okay, so there's just a couple of them there. Nothing too daunting to remember there. But I have great faith in you. You can all learn all of those, I'm sure. Okay, then the thing we want to remember when we're renaming units. We're either going to multiply or divide. And the number that we're going to multiply or divide both by is given to us in our conversion factor. So 1 foot is 12 inches. That means 12 would be my unit that I'm either going to multiply or divide by. How are we going to figure out when we're using it? Well, what you need to do is you need to look at your problem and you need to determine, am I going from larger to smaller units or am I going from smaller to larger units? So if I'm going from larger to smaller units, the operation I'm going to use is multiplication, because it takes more of the smaller units to make up one big unit. Whereas when we're going the other way, if I have a smaller unit that I'm making a larger unit, we're going to divide. I should wind up with a smaller number because the larger unit means I don't have as much of it, okay? So sometimes that's a little tricky for kids to wrap their heads around. So make sure that you definitely note down those two things. Those are the big things you have to remember. You need to know whether you're multiplying or dividing. Once you've figured out what operation you're doing, it's nice and simple. You just have to do that operation using the given conversion. Okay? So we're going to do some examples, and remember, you can always pause this if I'm moving too fast to copy down all of these notes. So we're just going to take a look at some of our conversions here. So here I'm going from miles to feet. So the first question I'm going to ask myself is, which way am I going? Miles are bigger, so I'm going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, which means I'm going to wind up multiplying. So I'm going to multiply the number I'm given, which was the 3/4 of a mile, and then I'm going to multiply that by my conversion unit. So how many feet are in a mile? 5,280. And I'm going to write it in a fraction since I'm multiplying by a fraction. Here I'm going to use my calculator, mostly because I'm getting kind of lazy and I'm not really doing this in my head. When I do that, I wind up with 3,960. And it makes sense because if 5,280 feet are 1 mile, I have. All right, so again, when we look at our next one, we want to look at which way we're going. Here I have inches. I'm going from inches to yards. I'm going from small to big. Inches are little, yards are bigger. So because I'm going smaller to a bigger unit, I'm going to wind up dividing. So 90 is going to be divided, and then I just need to figure out what my factor is. So what you'll notice is I didn't give you the conversion for how many inches are in a yard. Now, some of you probably right off the top of your head are saying it's 36 because you know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot and 3 feet in 1 yard. So if we multiply those two factors, it's 36 inches in 1 yard. So we could do that, or we could do this in 2 steps. I could change my inches into feet by dividing by 12, then take that answer, divide it by the 3 feet in each yard to get my final answer. I could do that, or I could just do it the way we've already, and divide by the 36 because there's 36 inches in a yard. So when I do this, I notice I'm not going to wind up with a whole number, and I'm going to leave it in fraction form instead of making it a decimal. If you have a calculator, the decimal form is probably easier. Since I'm dealing with it this way, it's going to be easier for me to leave it in a fraction. So it'll go into there 2 whole times, and I'm left with 18 over 36, which actually reduces to 2/3. So I'm just going to call that 2 2/3 a yard. If I had done that as a decimal, it would have been a repeating decimal, which probably would have been more confusing and a little trickier to write. So I like to just leave that as a fraction. All right, so here I'm going from ounces to pounds. So if you remember, ounces are smaller. It takes 16 ounces to make up 1 pound. So I'm going from a small unit to a larger unit, which means I'm going to divide. So I'm going to divide my 60 ounces by the 16 that it takes to make 1 pound. All right, and again, I'll leave this in a fractional form here as well. So this is going to go into here 4 times, I think? Not quite. 3 times. Three and 12/16, which actually reduces to 3 3/4 of a pound. All right, so I'm just going to leave it in the fraction form, like I said, to make it a little bit easier. Or if you did it as a decimal, it would have been 3.75. Same thing, all right? So really our big thing here, the big thing you'll notice the question I keep asking you is which way are we going? Big to small, small to big. Then we know what operation we're doing. Then we just pull out our conversion factor and do the operation. So here I'm going from fluid ounces to cups. So here I'm going from small to large, okay? It takes 8 fluid ounces to make 1 cup, so the ounces are smaller. So that means small to large means I'm going to divide. So I'm dividing my 30 fluid ounces by the 8 that it takes to make a cup. And this is going to go into here 3 times with 6 left over. 6/8 reduces to 3/4. All right. And again, if it's easier for you to do it as a decimal, do it as a decimal. That's fine. All right, here I'm going from gallons to quarts. Now remember, gallons was at the bottom. Our gallons was our biggest measure. So gallons are big, quarts are smaller. So I'm going to wind up multiplying here. So I have 6.5 gallons, and I'm going to multiply it by my conversion factor. So how many quarts are in a gallon? 4. Now I can just do my multiplication. And again, you know your rules. I'm going to do it the wrong way in my head. That's fine. 26 quarts. It's not wrong. The answer is correct. I'm just not going through all the steps. I'm doing it my way. Do what I say, not what I do. You know. All right. Here I have pounds. I'm going to ounces. So pounds are bigger than ounces. I'm going from big to small, which means I'm multiplying. So I'm going to multiply 2.5 by how many ounces are in a pound. That's my conversion factor. If we look on our chart, there's 16 ounces in a pound, okay? So if we're going big to small, it takes more ounces to make up a few pounds. So here, again, we can do our multiplication, and I get 40 ounces. All right? And again, this is a time where I'll let you use calculators for this. I'm more concerned that you understand the concept of your conversion as opposed to worrying about you getting all of your multiplication and division right. I don't want that to be a factor here. I want to see that you know whether you should multiply or divide. All right, here I'm going from inches to feet. Inches are smaller. I'm going small to large. So that means I'm going to divide. So the inches I'm dividing by the 12 that it takes to make 1 foot. 12 is my conversion factor. That'll go in there 2 times with 6/30 left over, which reduces to 2/10. Oh, sorry, 1/5. 2/10 is not the smallest it will go. 1/5. All right. And again, you can keep it as a decimal if you prefer. Here I'm going from cups to ounces. Cups are larger, so here I'm going to multiply. So the 6 1/2 cups I have times the 8 fluid ounces in each cup. I'm going to do my multiplication, and I'm going to wind up with 44. No, just kidding. 48, 52. 52. And if you have a calculator, you can check my math for me, but I'm pretty sure it's right. Again, if you have any questions, rewatch the video. You can post your questions in the comments box, ask me in class, email me, and I would love to go over that with you. You guys have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.